I mentioned earlier in the program some reminder here. Please remember what the left, forget Republicans, what the left thought of Kamala Harris not so long ago. She was the object of parody by the left. Like one of the best parodies I've seen of her from The Daily Show just a couple of months ago.
Okay.
An introduction to the people behind the people. Kamala Harris's holistic thought advisor.
This is good.
Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time.
Seems like maybe it's a small issue, it's a big issue. You need to get to go and need to be able to get where you need to go to do the work and get home.
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. Every day it is time for us to agree that
she's come so far since our first session. My name is Dahlia Rose Hibiscus, and I am Vice President Kamala Harris's Holistic Thought Advisor. What is a Holistic Thought Advisor? Well, it's holistic, yes, and I am advising. And what do we mean when we say that? It means that I am the one by whom the thoughts are being advised from a place of advisement, and then once advised, communicated holistically.
What?
You get it. I lead the Vice President on not so much sentences as idea voyages.
you think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
It's a process I call speaking without thinking. It's not about the destination of the thought. It's about the journey and how many words you use to describe the journey.
That's on top of everything else that we know and don't know yet, based on what we've just been able to see. And because we've seen it or not doesn't mean it hasn't happened.
Whenever the Vice President gets a speech from her staff, the first thing I do is cut out all the words individually, and then I take those words to my word cave. That's where I wait to learn what order the universe wants them to be in. Words have vibrations. The feeling they give you is so much more powerful than what they mean.
We have the ability to see what can be, unburdened by what has been, and then to make the possible actually happen.
I hear the counter arguments all the time. People should be able to understand what their leaders are saying when they talk. But I prefer to leave Kamala's thoughts open to interpretation. Like a work of modern art that you look at and go, I wonder what that was all about.
See the moment in time in which we exist and are present. And to be able to contextualize it, to understand where we exist in the history and in the moment as it relates not only to the past but the future.
It really is such a career highlight to be working with someone with such an advanced mind space as the Vice President. I also sell essential oils on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, of course you do. Dahlia Rose Hibiscus, thank you so much. So this is the point. I mean, that's the Daily Show. A process I call speaking without thinking. High-level stuff. That's the Daily Show's take on Kamala Harris 5 minutes ago, as we're being reintroduced to her as some sort of dizzying intellect, and she's a debate pro who can prosecute the case against Trump.
She repeats, but she's had 2 campaign events, and she said the same things both times.
Well, she's going to be...
She has nothing else.
She is going to be very scripted. I mean, there was reporting in Axios earlier this week that when she was invited to a dinner with the media titans, that they did a rehearsal dinner. Her staff did a rehearsal dinner with her, including contemplating the possibility of having her drink a glass of wine or two, so that she could role play with her staff, pretending to be members of the media, and how she would interact with them after having a glass of wine or two. I mean, that's how vacuous she is. But that doesn't mean that her vacuity doesn't spawn real policy problems, including with respect to the position she took when she was a candidate for president in 2020, and of course that she's adopted as the quote-unquote border czar for this administration, which is open borders. She, in 2020, as we've played the clips before, openly contemplating abolishing ICE. It's just opening the borders, but abolishing ICE altogether. We need to start over with ICE.
Right. Reimagine it.
Paul Hutchinson is the founder of the Child Liberation Foundation. He's also the executive producer of Sound of Freedom, the blockbuster movie Sound of Freedom. Of course, his focus is on human trafficking, and particularly the trafficking of children that is exploited by those criminal organizations through America's open border. Paul Hutchinson joins us now. Paul, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Amy. I appreciate being here on the show and talking about these important issues.
Yeah, so all the fun and games with Kamala and Biden, too, with respect to their speechifying, real serious implications, as I was saying. So why don't you speak to the aspect of that that's of particular interest to you with respect to the lawlessness at our border?
Well, what's and I enjoy listening to that. The what can be unburdened by what has been. It's an important statement, but she says it all the time. She literally doesn't think about anything she says. And on her policies, we can barter back and forth and say that the border wall is a political issue. It should never been a political issue. It's a human trafficking problem, and it has been an utter failure under Kamala as the quote-unquote border czar. Hundreds of thousands of undocumented children are coming across the border. In fact, just recently, it's been revealed that the State Department has admitted they have literally lost 85,000 children. And I'm currently here in South America right now, and every single day, children are being literally taken from healthy families at every major city throughout all of South America and Central America and brought up to the border. And our taxpayer dollars are funding these children to be transported into, many cases, homes that have not been properly vetted. They do not have an FBI background check, and these children are being controlled through fear, manipulation, drugs, just like in the movie Sound of Freedom, where you see the little boy that was being controlled by the traffickers saying, you don't want something bad to happen to your sister, do you? This kind of thing happens all the time, and we need to wake up. It's not just our own children. It's children around the world who are being negatively affected by this failure on the border.
Well, who's taking these kids? Who's kidnapping them, taking them out of their families? Like, what are they? Cartels? Who is it?
Well, in a majority of cases worldwide, children that are being exploited usually come from either broken homes, runaways. A broken foster care program in the U.S. is a big deal that we need to fix. But this is the first time that we have hundreds of thousands of children that are coming across the border because of our policy. It's not just the children. If you look at pictures of real refugees that are fleeing from war-torn countries or challenging economic situations, you usually have a mother, you have a father, you have a couple children. You look at the pictures of who's coming across the border now. You've got military-aged males from our enemy countries. This is an invasion that is being orchestrated by this administration. And in addition to that, of course, we've got all of these children, because what's happening is it's a lot more efficient for these traffickers to bring the children to the demand. And that's an entirely other conversation, that the United States is the number one producer and consumer of child pornography, and they're the ones that are traveling abroad to do these horrible things to children, and instead they're now bringing those children to be exploited right here in our backyards.
Yeah, and on the 85,000 kids, that unaccompanied minors that have gone missing, this was reported many months ago, and we were supposed to get an update on that because, of course, Ali Mayorkas said, we're looking into this and we're very concerned about this, and we're going to try to resolve these essentially disappearances. And I never heard any follow up, and we don't get any follow up from most of the press corps on this too, pressing the issue. But I mean, I assume that number probably has grown, just like the number of people in this country illegally has grown, because there is only rhetoric that's directed to addressing these problems, not any substantive action that at least has been documented.
100%. We've got well over 100,000 children a year that are being brought across the border without parents, and hopefully there are some of them that are getting into healthy homes. I'm an advocate of good legislation for healthy families that are coming in and being reintegrated into our society. But unfortunately, when you have this open border policy, immigration is broken in every way, and we need to fix that. In fact, we go into depth on that on the Sound of Freedom book. Goes into depth of what's really going on in our country as well, not just in South and Central America.
Well, it's just sad because so many people are just essentially comfort themselves with mindless sloganeering, not unlike Kamala. So it's children in cages, and hashtag campaigns. Hold up a picture, hashtag children in cages. And then it's family separation. Oh, my gosh, family separation. But then the 100,000 kids unaccompanied here a year, and they disappear, probably largely being exploited. I mean, that's just what we assume to be the case, and you have more knowledge about this than just about anybody. And and where are the hashtag campaigns and the sloganeering about family separation and children in potentially much worse than cages around the country?
Absolutely. Before the movie came out, Sound of Freedom, I led over 70 undercover rescue missions in 15 countries, and most of them were ones that were close to the U.S., everywhere from Dominican Republic and Haiti and Mexico and throughout all of Central and South America. And the problem is the Americans that are either going down there or the children that are being brought across the border. And so this should, like I said earlier, this should have never been a political issue. This is a human trafficking issue, and these children are being exploited by the utter failure of Kamala Harris as the quote-unquote border czar.
And so I mean, because this is a political issue, and I'm sure it's going to be prosecuted by both sides over the next 100 days. I mean, if you were advising Trump, I mean, what is the one or two immediate steps that need to be taken to address the damage that's already been done and prevent more damage when it comes to human trafficking?
When children are coming across the border without parents, there needs to be a lot more done in verifying that those children are not being trafficked. There has to be a lot more done in vetting the families that the children are going to. And as a whole, we need to shut down this open border because it is a cesspool of filth of coming across with the cartel members, especially in that part of Mexico, are making massive amounts of money. And a majority of these children and women are being raped even before they come across the border. So it is creating a huge humanitarian problem. And back to the Trump question, there has never been a president in history that has done more to fight child trafficking than Donald Trump. Not one ever in the United States. He has focused right from the beginning of his presidency in 2016 to eradicate this problem, and will absolutely do so again from a place of compassion, but he will do it in the right way when he's back in presidency.
So what happens like a child crosses the border? Where do they go?
Well, here's what happens. They, supposedly they're being transported to a healthy family that can take care of them. But here's the reality. Many of these children that are taken from places here in Central and South America, the parents don't have proper resources to go after that child, to figure out where they are, et cetera. And immediately that child is told, listen, we know where your mother lives. We know where your sister goes to school. You don't want bad things to happen to them, do you? And they're broken down emotionally by being raped almost immediately when they're taken. They're then transported up to the U.S. border, and they're given a phone number. They're given an address of a quote unquote sponsor. And many times these sponsors are not being vetted properly. And if the State Department does deem that sponsor as somebody that is unworthy for that child, then they identify a new family for them. But that child is already told, look, if you don't end up in this family with this this person, it's usually a perpetrator. If you don't end up there, then you're required to run away and find this phone number and call this. Otherwise, bad things are going to happen to your family. This happens all the time. They're controlled through fear. They're controlled through manipulation. They're controlled through drugs. And this is where a lot of these kids, even if they were put into quote-unquote healthy homes, all of a sudden run away. Why? Because it's part of the cartel system bringing these children in. They can make a lot more money exploiting those children in the United States than they can in Honduras. And so our taxpayer dollars are being used to fund the transportation of these children to vulnerable homes and places where they can be re-exploited here in the U.S.
Paul Hutchinson is the founder of the Child Liberation Foundation. He was also the executive producer of Sound of Freedom, the blockbuster movie. And by the way, speaking of that, he's got a book coming out, The Sound of Freedom, the true story behind the blockbuster film. That book is due out at some date to be determined, Paul?
Yeah, it'll come out within the next month and a half. You can go to soundoffreedombook.com and pre-order. And it goes into detail of not only the rescue missions, but more importantly, things that parents can do to keep their children safe, things that we can identify that in behavior changes in our children that makes them more at risk. People ask, how can I fix this? How can I work? The worst thing you can do is go to Colombia and try to rescue children. You're going to get shot. Mm-hmm. The best thing you can do is go home and hug your children, have some dialogue, conversations with them, and I go through that in detail in the Sound of Freedom book.
Paul Hutchinson, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. God bless you and all that you do. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Can you